Good afternoon, everybody. Now, Venezuela is no exception, and the blatant electoral fraud following the July 28 presidential elections must continue to be condemned, and those obstructing democracy held accountable. And that is why, to that end, today we took two important actions to hold Nicolas Maduro and his cronies accountable for their blatant electoral fraud, obstruction of a competitive and inclusive election, and violation of the civil and human rights of the people. First, the Department of Treasury sanctioned 16 Maduro-affiliated officials. Second, the Department of State imposed new visa restrictions on a significant number of Maduro-aligned officials. And education stories, and she's not leaving. But she's
what we saw yesterday with the president briefly wearing a MAGA hat, since the pool wasn't in the room for that, can you share a little bit more about how that happened and just what kind of message you think it sent?
Against Women Act, VAWA. To protect women from domestic violence, the president gave an impromptu remarks about bipartisan unity. That's what he was talking about. And he talked about it in the moment of September 11th. That's what we experienced after 9/11, and said that we needed to go back to that bipartisan unity as a country. And so he made those remarks, impromptu remarks, to some of the folks who were there on that day. And he offered a presidential hat to a man who was wearing a Trump cap. He was wearing a Trump hat, and he offered it to him as a gesture. And in return, the man said that in the same spirit, the president should put on his Trump cap. And so the president did very briefly. Please join us in wishing them, in all seriousness, a lifetime.
Former President Trump refused to say plainly whether he wanted Ukraine to win the war. Has the White House fielded any calls from allies about this, what this could mean if he wins, a change in U.S. policy? Has it impacted any of the White House's work with counterparts in Ukraine?
So here's what I'm going to say. Look, I'm not going to answer specifically to what happened at the debate. What I will say is President Biden is president right now.
Did they have any conversations? Did they speak about anything?
President's comments on Ukraine. He said earlier this week when asked about the possibility to change the policy for Ukraine to use long-range weapons into Russia, he said we're working on it. A U.S. official later clarified that there was no change in policy. Can you say what exactly is being worked on?
So I'm not going to get into policy deliberations here in public. What I can say is basically what I said in answering one of your colleagues' questions about Ukraine specifically, obviously, which is that we want to make sure our focus is making sure that Ukraine has what it needs to defend itself, to win back their territory, their sovereign territory, to win that back.
I'm wondering if you could give a readout of what was discussed, but also...
I want to continue asking about Ukraine if possible. Putin today said about these alleged plans to change the idea about long-range missiles. He said that it would mean that NATO countries, the US, European countries are at war with Russia. How concerned is the US about that statement?
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. I'm not going to get into internal policy deliberations from here. I will say what you've heard from my NSC colleagues at this podium. You've heard from this president. This war can end today if Mr. Putin will end the war that he started. It is his aggression. It is his war that he started. He can end it. He can end it.
Is there anything you can preview on UNGA specifically? President Zelensky said.
On a related note, during the debate, Trump spread false claims and lies about immigrants eating pets in Springfield, Ohio. The city manager disputed those false claims, and today, City Hall was evacuated after a bomb threat was sent to city agencies and media outlets. Does President Biden believe Trump's words and rhetoric contributed to those threats today?
So look, I want to be super mindful. We are aware of the reports of a bombing threat, as you just stated, in Springfield, Ohio. At City Hall, local police obviously is investigating the situation, and we encourage everyone to follow the public safety guidance. I don't want to speculate from here the source of the bomb threat, but I do want to take a step back. I think it's important that all of us take a step back here and just lean on the facts here. She thought she was here for VAWA. They will tie the non-administration did. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.
Is the president aware of the red